Okay, so Stephanie, guess where I'm going tonight?
Let me guess, the circus?
Yes, we were actually talking about this a little bit off air before we decided to start recording. And I have not been to a circus, I probably since I was like 9. And they have a local circus here that I guess has been ongoing for like 75 years or something. And they have like the legit circus with, bears on bicycles and the lions and all the shit that's not allowed in the circus in America anymore. So I really
Right,
wanted
because
to go
didn't
see
they
it.
like disband it here? It was
Yes.
like the one that we all grew up with, and then they got in trouble for like animal abuse or
Yes.
something.
Yeah, but not here.
Well, there you go. Another benefit of being over there. Yeah, the last circus I went to, it was at the state fairgrounds here in Florida, middle of summer, super hot. And it was like the old circus with the big tent,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh, I've never been in one of those. That looks so cool. So we went. I got so claustrophobic because it is blazing, humid Florida weather, and there's no air, there's no fan, no circulation, and we're all under this tent. And I like freaked out. I mean, I was panicking, and I was in the middle. I had to climb like over people to get out, but at that point, I didn't care. Like, I would throw people out of the way if I had to get out of that tent. It was awful. So now I'm like traumatized.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen to me tonight. I always have these visions, I think from back when I was in the fire department and I was doing all of these research projects for school, like all the fires that occur in circus tents, and because everything's flammable, it all just comes crashing down on the people.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking of because they're doing all these like things with fire, and I'm like, are you kidding me? It's already, 100 degrees in here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's even more terrifying that that does happen.
So yeah, I will let you know how it goes, but I am kind of excited, and I always am. I'm not going to say afraid, but completely freaked out by clowns.
Me
So
too.
that's the other thing. I'm like, oh, I wonder what the clowns are going to be like because I just don't do clowns.
I don't either. And that was kind of a big thing when I was a kid. It was like you had like Ronald McDonald and
Hmm.
what was the one? Bozo, the
Yes.
clown. And there were like all these clowns, and I was freaked out. And I think it was because my brother let me watch Poltergeist. And,
Yeah.
like the clown like pulls the kid under the bed
Mhm.
or something. Yeah, they freak me out.
Oh yeah, I think all our fears can probably be tied to childhood trauma and movies. And
Mhm.
my neighbor growing up, her entire apartment was those fucking happy sad clowns, those really creepy looking ones. And her whole entire apartment was decorated like that. And I refused to go in there because it creeped me out. So, anyway, speaking of terrifying, like, first of all, happy Friday, everybody. And I'm going to bring up something that we did not even talk about or plan to talk about. But first, Stephanie, let me ask you, did you listen to Tucker's recent interview with Alex Jones?
No.
Okay. This is like a 2+ hour interview. And I came away from it feeling both patriotic and completely terrified because you know how everyone thinks Alex Jones is crazy, right? The conspiracy theory guy.
Yeah.
But pretty much everything that he predicts comes true. Like he
Yes, it
is
does.
eerily accurate with his predictions. And, they were talking about the tariff thing, and I'm actually going to play a couple clips later, but they were talking about how Trump has basically come in and disrupted the New World Order and how it seems like we've defeated the elites, but we really haven't. And he's like, mark my words, there is going to be some kind of escalated domestic unrest and like terrorism that leads to some kind of triggering event this summer that will make the George Floyd riots basically look like child's play. And he was talking about the predictive programming of that movie Civil War. Did you see that?
No, I remember seeing the trailer for it, but I never actually watched it.
Yeah, I didn't see the movie either, but I guess in the movie there's some kind of like civil war, maybe it's like race based, I'm not sure. Again, I didn't see the movie, but they end up like basically killing the president and like overthrowing the government. And so he was saying there is going to be some kind of incident to either create like a race based civil war that will crash the markets and establish military operations to kill Trump, just like I guess that's how it happened in the movie. Or it will be, this next big pandemic, which is also predictive programming with what we've been told for the past 2 years that, something way more deadly than COVID is coming. And they're talking about how, whatever plan this is will involve eliminating free speech and like getting rid of X and all of our free speech platforms. And it'll just be this full on civil war that will enable the global elites to come back in, resume power, and then take over the world. And it left me with chills because I'm so excited about everything that Trump is doing, but it's like we said all along, like ever since he got elected, I still don't think they're going to let it go that easily. And so because Alex Jones is usually so accurate with shit, it bothered me.
Okay, what do you think about the conspiracy that Alex Jones is like a big psyop? Like he's like paid, like he's like CIA basically.
I have not even heard that.
You haven't?
No.
This is like the running theory. Like I believe this because just like you said, everything he's ever said, there is some truth to it. So go back to like I think the first thing that really got him in the public eye was he got into Bohemian Grove.
I
And
remember
everyone's
that.
like, you can't just get into Bohemian Grove. You can't.
Yeah.
Like the security is so tight. There's the top of the top there. There's no way you can just sneak into this place. Like he is a part of this whole thing. His mom, and he openly admits this, his mom was like a researcher or something with the CIA during MK Ultra. So he was like in the area of MK Ultra and this whole like CIA thing, and his mom was a part of it. And they say that they bring in like their kids as their kids. So like, I don't know, but Joe Rogan even asked him about this because he's gone on Joe Rogan like a bunch of times. And Joe Rogan was like, you'll start saying something and it makes sense. And it's like, okay. And like, I start believing it. And I'm like, yeah, you're on to something. And he's like, and then you throw some fucking crazy ass shit out there. Like you start talking about vampires. And he's like, so then you lose me. And so the whole idea is that he is CIA or whatever, and he'll give some truth, but then he'll say something so wacky that people are like, oh, he's crazy. And so now when other people talk about that same truth, it's like, oh, you're one of those crazy conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones, which is exactly what people do.
Yeah.
And so I kind of think he is. Because he's been
Interesting.
right about so many things. He has not been banned or censored or killed or arrested.
Yeah, I guess someone he works with was just recently assassinated or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do remember hearing that.
Yeah, and then they were talking about, 9/11 and the CIA's involvement, and so now that you're talking about him being part of the CIA possibly, like it's very fascinating to me. It's just it freaks me out. His predictions freak me out.
Well, I kind of think about it too from like a manifesting standpoint. Like right now, you and I have been so like energized, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing because things are moving in a good direction. And then, it's like, what does the media always try to do? They try to get everyone in a state of fear because when you're in a state of fear, then you can be easily controlled.
Right.
So that also makes me think like when everything's good, he's going to start like putting these little ideas in everyone's head that nope, there's going to be a civil war.
But he was approaching it from the perspective of good versus evil. And he was saying that there is this spiritual awakening that's happening, and that basically Trump is the defining factor in this global battle between good and evil, and that we need to be on the side of good. So he did, especially Tucker does a lot of religious based conversations now. And that was the element that was brought into it, was like the spiritual side of this good versus evil fight that's going on.
I do believe that. I do believe that we've that's become very apparent over the last few years. And I mean, we've said it before too, like they're not going to just let this happen. The people
Right.
who control the world, who have like all the money and power and resources, aren't just going to lay down and take it. So the question is, are they going to try to sabotage Trump, or are they just going to get through this term and probably still like try to sabotage him, but then go full force trying to take over the next administration. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, anyhow, I'm going to switch to the good news that did come in on the economy since our Wednesday episode, which is just crazy. It's like a roller coaster. You know, every day is different. Um, so I talked on Wednesday about how I was going to buy stock because it was down, and it on Thursday the stock market bounced back, and it's within like 10% of all-time highs, which was really surprising for me to hear, but I did not think that was going to happen as quickly as it did. But what happened was Trump announced that there would be a 90-day pause on almost all tariffs for the nations that came to the negotiating table. So basically, there's so many of them that there's no way they can quickly negotiate with every single one. So he's saying, okay, we're going to pause while we're in negotiations. While we're paused, there's going to be a flat 10% tariff. So the markets bounced back. And for anyone listening that's pissed that, like, oh man, I didn't buy when the market was down,
Like
I would say
me?
don't worry. Yeah, I guarantee it's going to be like this for a while because he's doing so many things at once. And I think once this 90-day pause over the tariffs is over, we'll probably see another dip, and that'll be another opportunity to buy. So I think, you know, you're good, just kind of pay attention to it. But I think long term, and definitely over the next 4 years, I think we're going to see some incredible growth overall. That's my prediction. We'll see how well that ages.
Yeah, I think the stock market's going to be pretty volatile for a while with this whole tariff up and down thing. And I guess there was a major drop again yesterday after Trump announced he was increasing tariffs on China to 125%, which was later clarified to actually be 145%, which we'll get to in a minute. But I do agree with you that I think there's going to be growth over the next 4 years. And so I am finally going to get over my fear of taking risks in the stock market. And I think I'm going to make some investments. So,
Yeah. Well, and you know what I was thinking is when I saw that growth like overnight in the things that I did invest in, I was telling my husband people are going to wake up as soon as the market is open. They're going to want to cash in their profit. And so a bunch of people are going to cash in and then it'll go back down. So I think it's going to be this roller coaster for a little bit, but like long term, the S&P, like I said before, it always grows.
yeah.
So you really can't go wrong with doing something more conservative like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's better than I mean, I think I said this the other day. My retirement when I left LAPD, I had to move it somewhere into like a an IRA. And it's just literally for 2 years been sitting there, not gaining, not losing, like just straight nothing because I've just been too hesitant to do anything with it. But you know what? I'm going to have faith and play the long game. But I have to mention that because of like, I guess this was like one of the most historic stock market gains in history since World War II. And so of course you have the opposition from the left, and you had Adam Schiff and Pocahontas, aka Elizabeth Warren, crying insider trading and calling for an investigation into Trump because of this Truth Social post that he made on Wednesday. And he had written in all caps, "This is a great time to buy DJT." And he put this up a few hours before he announced he was going to pause the tariffs, which, Stephanie, I think that's when you decided to buy. And Schiff then posted.
I have notifications set up on Truth Social so that when he says stuff like that, I can act on it because you know other people are and it's going to go up.
Yeah.
So I got on that right away and I made some good money.
Yeah, that's smart. That's why I'm going to do it. So Schiff posted a video on X, and the headline was like, "Is Donald Trump's inner circle illegally profiting off these huge swings in the market by insider trading? Congress must find out." Training, not trading. Wow. Okay, just FYI, I'm on my third cup of coffee, which is like I put extra espresso in it, and it's been a long morning already, so I apologize.
Oh, I love espresso.
And then Elizabeth Warren posted her own video, and she said she's calling for an investigation into whether Trump manipulated the market to benefit his Wall Street donors. And she said, "It sure looks like corruption." And I had to laugh because this coming from two of the most corrupt members of Congress.
Yeah, seriously. Weren't they the ones that were all against that bill that would have prohibited Congress members from investing or something like where they had to show what they were investing and like all the Democrats were against
Yeah,
it and the Republican Uniparty.
right.
But like, how come they never questioned Nancy Pelosi, who had better stock market gains than Warren Buffett? I mean, they never even flinched with that, but they're going to call out Trump.
Have we even heard anything from Pelosi on this whole thing? I haven't seen
She's
anything.
probably hiding somewhere, I would assume, with all of her millions of dollars that she laundered,
Yeah.
allegedly. But I remember when I saw that notification come through, my first thought was, he posted this. I'm getting on it now because I know a bunch of people are going to buy. But then I was thinking, like, what is he doing? Because you know that's exactly where they're going to go with it. They're going to say he's trying to influence, the market or whatever. But then I also think, didn't he do something with that where it's like separate from him or something? I think before you go into the presidency, you have to move things around. And I don't know. But I was just kind of like, Trump, what are you doing? Like, this is going to look bad. But anyhow, I bought anyways. So something he mentioned is that, it's only been what, not even a week, right? With
Right.
these tariffs. And the US is already taking in $2 billion a day. Every single day, $2 billion. That's like $730 billion a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, damn, that's pretty close to that trillion that we pay in our interest rate with the national deficit. So that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think every dollar that we can bring back to America is good. And so now you have like everyone speculating, was this whole thing calculated and was it a planned move by Trump, or was he getting pressured by his inner circle to chill on the tariffs because everyone was freaking out and, maybe it was a mistake. And I read a bunch of articles that even Elon Musk was in opposition to these tariffs and all sorts of drama. But I have a couple clips that I want to play of people talking about Trump's tariffs. And do you remember Geraldo Rivera?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
I don't know when he made that transition from like tacky daytime
Talk
news
show host.
talk show host to like actually a respected, he's not really a politician, but whatever. But I think he's a Republican actually, which surprised me. But he did an interview with News Nation, and I just want to play what he had to say because it was pretty awesome.
Well, it could be. Maybe that's when he finally decided to pull the trigger. But I believe that he ambushed China. I believe that he suckered the whole world into believing that he was going to go down in this, this Harry Carey, this suicide mission.
So you think this is
against the world?
The plan all along?
I think with him, it's so much spontaneous. But I believe it evolved. I mean, Monday, so many people were feeling terrible pain.
Yeah.
The markets were tanking. There was no, end in sight. People were watching their 401ks, their IRAs disappear. The whole nation was, I think, trembling over the uncertainty of where we were going with this. He was picking a fight with the entire world. So I said Monday, well, isn't the problem China? Why are we getting everybody, UK, the European Union, Japan, etc. China's the problem. I couldn't understand it. But then this morning, I tell a New York story quickly.
Yep.
I'm at the Regency Hotel with a dear old friend of mine, David Sherrill, who does the stocks. Erica and I, my wife and I are together.
You're a broker?
You're a broker.
Of course.
And we're
Of course.
talking about, oh my God, this is awful, but we're doing the right thing. You have to have courage. You have to stick it out. I went to my Twitter followers. I said, please don't sell. This is on Sunday and Monday. Please don't sell unless you absolutely have to. And then, look what he does. Oh, surprise. This is why Trump is triumphant. This is why you can't beat this guy.
Great breakfast, by the way, at the Regent.
I thought that was funny because he's right. Like you can't beat Trump.
Everything he does is calculated. They
Yes.
always try to make it sound like he just does these crazy things out of the blue, but he has a plan for everything.
Yes, but I want to play this clip now of how he was basically explaining himself to reporters because he got asked on Wednesday about the tariffs, and his answer kind of shows what I think it shows what an incredible chess player he is. So Let's listen to what he said.
Would you consider exempting some U.S. companies, maybe some larger companies who have been hit hard in the markets the last few days during this 90 days?
As time goes by, we're going to take a look at it. There are some that have been hard. There are some that, by the nature of the company, get hit a little bit harder, and we'll take a look at that, yeah.
How do you determine that?
Just instinctively, more than anything else. I mean, you almost can't take a pencil to paper. It's really more of an instinct, I think, than anything else.
Because you said that these tariffs would go into effect on Monday. You said no pause. Today there is a pause. So how can people believe your words today?
It's not a question of that. You have to have flexibility. I could say, here's a wall, and I'm going to go through that wall. I'm going to go through it no matter what. Keep going, and you can't go through the wall. Sometimes you have to be able to go under the wall, around the wall, or over the wall. These guys know that better than anybody, right? You got to go around them sometimes. You're not going to go through them. So I consider, I think in financial markets, because they change. Look how much it changed today. We went from, pretty moderate today, but over the last few days.
That's his business instinct. That's how he became who he is, right? But then he said, it's also about being flexible.
Yeah. I think this was 100% part of the plan. And this dawned on me yesterday, okay? Because think about it. What did Trump do with Mexico and Canada? He announced he's slapping them with these insane tariffs, right? Then they called and they kissed his ass and they negotiated on like the border and whatever else. And so he said, okay, we're going to pause the tariffs for 30 days to see if you do what you say you're going to do. And then what happened 30 days later? He thought they didn't do a good enough job on the border, so he hit them with tariffs, and he's stuck to that. I think that was very purposeful. I think he was sending a clear message to the world. If you negotiate with me, I will work with you. But if you don't hold up your end of the bargain, there will be consequences. And so he's like literally doing that same strategy now with this 90-day pause. I think he's negotiating with these countries, and if they don't meet their end of the deal within 90 days, they know he means business and he's going to hit them with tariffs. So they're more likely to comply with whatever they negotiate on. And I think it's like a respect thing. Like he is showing his dominance and you're not going to mess around with me. You do what you say you're going to do and we'll be friends. And if you don't, then I will come back with the tariffs and you're done. Yeah. So I think the whole thing was planned. It's like literally the same thing he did with Canada and Mexico. But I also do think like he has good instinct. And I know Eric Trump has talked about intuition before. And I'm like, they know how to tap into that. But anyhow, you would think China would be smart enough to kind of figure this out. But they still have refused to come to the negotiating table. And I know Trump had said he thinks they want to make a deal, but they don't quite know how to go about it. And he mentioned how President Xi is a proud man. And I've heard a lot of people talking about this, about it, how they think it's more the culture in China where they're trying to save face and they're trying to avoid looking weak. But I mean, my God, it's getting them into this position that's going to be very hard to get out of. And as Caroline Levitt said, you punch Trump, he'll punch back harder. And now they just keep punching each other.
Yeah, it's almost turning into a comedy because, after Trump pushed the tariffs to 104%, I mean, again, this all happened in the last 2 days, right? Trump went to 104, China responds with 84%. Then Trump says, okay, 125. And then I mentioned earlier, it's actually 145, which was clarified by the White House yesterday because the 125% that Trump announced on Wednesday only factors in the reciprocal escalations from China, and it stacks on top of two 10% tariffs that we put on Beijing regarding fentanyl. And then this morning, I see that China upped their tariffs to 125% starting tomorrow. And a spokesperson for China's Commerce Ministry made this countermeasure statement. And he said that the United States raising abnormally high tariffs on China has become a numbers game, which has no practical economic significance and will become a joke in the history of the world economy. He said, however, if the U.S. insists on continuing to substantially infringe on China's interests, China will resolutely counter and fight to the end. And then this rep also said that China will be filing another lawsuit with the World Trade Organization about the U.S. raising tariffs. And then apparently China is also targeting Hollywood because the China Film Administration released a statement yesterday saying that they're going to restrict imports on Hollywood films, claiming that China is the world's second largest film market. And they said the wrong actions of the US government to abuse tariffs in China will inevitably further reduce the domestic audience's favorability towards American films. And I'm like, okay, I can live with that.
Isn't Hollywood already dead? Like, we're
Right.
boycotting movies, Like, go ahead and take them. Like, that. Okay, darn. I don't want to see Hollywood go. Yeah, and so what really shocked me is I didn't realize China is only 13 to 15% of all imports here. I thought it was like 80%. I don't know why I thought it was so big. I guess because everything you have in your home, you look at the tag, it says made in China. But I found out yesterday it's 13 to 15%. And so what Trump did is he took the other 85% or so, these other countries that are negotiating with him, and paused those tariffs. And so now those countries that were willing to negotiate, maybe they can make up that 13 to 15% we get from China. I'm sure they're very motivated to make that up. It would be great for their economy. And then you have Trump warning them they better not sneak around with China. And just like I said with the Canada-Mexico thing, I think they'll be smart enough to realize if they're caught doing that, it's not going to be good. So this brings me to, why is Trump being so tough on China in the first place? And I think we need to look at the history of kind of what went down. Because after the Tiananmen Square massacre, the US and most of the developed world wouldn't openly trade with China. But in 2000, I thought this was way earlier, but this was in 2000, Bill Clinton signed a trade deal with China to normalize trade relations with China, who at that point, they were still considered a developing country. And so this ended up paving the way for China to join the World Trade Organization. And then we know what happened next. China turned into a superpower. They became the second biggest economy in the world. And the whole thing is this trade deal was supposed to make China more democratic. So in the White House press release from this trade announcement back then, it gives 3 bullet points. It says, quote, "This agreement will expose China to global competition and thereby bring China under even more pressure to privatize its state-owned industries and expand the role of the market in the Chinese economy. Second, it accelerates removal of the government from the lives of China's people." That's a joke. Last, it strengthens rule of law in China. It obliges the Chinese government to publish laws and regulations and subjects pertinent decisions to review of an international body. So as we know, like, none of those things happen. It did the exact opposite of every single one of those things. China's more authoritarian, and they've found all these loopholes to continually steal our intellectual property. American manufacturing has plummeted, and while our middle class suffered, China's economy grew over 3,000% since 1990, and the uniparty elites have allowed this to go on for decades. And like, you look at our infrastructure here, our buildings, everything else, we look like a third world country compared to China. It looks so futuristic, so modern, so advanced. So anyhow, you fast forward to today, in 2024, the U.S. trade deficit reached $1.17 trillion deficit, while China had a $0.96 trillion trade surplus. So, like, this is just unacceptable. China has no room to complain. We have over $1 trillion deficit in trade. They have almost $1 trillion surplus in trade. Like, no. This is, why are we doing this? I think that, it's not too much to say that they have financially raped the American middle class long enough. And this is where Trump can come in, and he has all the room to negotiate. And here's the other thing. China has over 300 million people working in manufacturing. I had no idea. That's like our population in the United States.
I thought it was all robots by this time.
Okay, so that's the thing. Even though they have all of these robots that can manufacture the products, they're still using people because think about it, like if 300 million people were laid off, their whole economy would collapse. People would not have an income anymore. And so you got to think, like you said earlier, Trump is a really good chess player. And so while the media is looking at the very next move, he's like 10 moves ahead. And China, as we've talked about so much on this podcast, is one of our biggest threats, both from a military perspective, but also this whole AI tech race, which also involves military capability. And they have made it clear, especially over the past 4 years with Biden, that it's not if, but when they invade Taiwan, in which case that could throw us into another proxy war. So next to Russia, they're our biggest threat in terms of military capability, unless, of course, their economy collapses. And they're already on shaky ground with their housing market. So if manufacturing takes a big hit, will they survive it? And will they still be a military threat to the U.S. if their economy is crumbling? And so I almost feel like he's killing two birds with one stone. Like he's making America's economy stronger, but also making us safer. And remember, Scott Bessent said these tariffs are just as important for national security as they are for our economy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a smart way to like take down China without directly going to war. I mean, it's a trade war, but
Yeah, but it's just that it's not only China, it's how it's affecting the whole global trade program.
if he's got, pretty much all of the developed world willing to work with him, and why wouldn't they? This could, instead of China getting all this trade surplus, they could take some of this action and, make some of these products or whatever. I don't know. It's a big move, but of course, like it's a Trump move, right? So anyhow, I got to play this clip. I thought it's just so fun for me to watch the hosts of CNN all argue with each other because it's really just exposing how ridiculous their stance is. So here they are all arguing about tariffs and China.
Precisely. Trade is asymmetrical with China. We imported over 439 billion products from China. We exported over 140 billion from China. Their own foreign ministry has said, we will not flinch. We will not genuflect to a bullying government. I respectfully disagree.
You, though, Tiffany, that we rely so much on an adversary to make most of our goods?
Listen, whether it bothers me or not is irrelevant. I'm dealing with reality. It is important, but this is what it is.
Why does it have to be the reality that we are dependent on so many things to come out of our biggest adversary in the world? They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we
earth minerals and you don't.
They're the enemy.
Right. But listen, but like it or not, sure, Michael, they are our biggest trading partner. And if we were to manufacture iPhones here, iPhones would cost $3,500. The American people are not going to tolerate that. We have one of the highest standards of working conditions here. I don't think that we can say, forget you, China. They
So it's
literally.
okay. So you're okay. Hold on, sure, Michael. So you're okay. You're okay if we continue to put our own economic and national security future in the hands of our biggest enemy because effectively they use slave labor to build stuff, and that makes it better for us? That is terrible.
I am 100% not okay with that, but I'm dealing in the reality of what it is.
Do you want to change it? But we need to.
I absolutely want to change it. I don't know that changing it means isolating us on the global stage.
So what happens,
with these
Tiffany,
tariffs?
if I could ask, what happens if we ever have a military conflict with China? And they say, you know what, we're going to put an embargo on anything shipping to the United States. We're going to stop everything. What happens then?
Was that not amazing?
Okay, first of all, I'm surprised to hear anyone from CNN arguing common sense points, but I have not heard that clip. And as she was talking, I'm thinking, right, so basically you're in support of slave labor. And then he comes out and says the same thing.
I love how he calls her out on it. And she's like, well, no, I don't support it, but I live in reality. Okay, so yeah, you do support it. You're basically saying, oh, it's bad, but I mean, if we want cheap iPhones. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the Democrat Party. They were the same ones that wanted to keep slavery. So why are we surprised?
Right. It's like all the comments that Congress members have been making about how with immigration and like, if we don't allow immigration, there'll be no one to pick our carrots and, It's like, yeah, so basically you just want slave labor and you're okay with it. And you're going to get it from immigrants.
They're showing their true colors. And I thought the guy at the end made such a good point. What happens if we enter into any type of military conflict with China and they put an embargo and we can't get like basic necessities that we need, like medications? That's a problem.
And it's like, you and I have been talking about this threat of China for the last 3 years, right? Especially in terms of the military threat and then all the farmland that they've bought up across the country, which, surprise, surprise, is mostly near military bases. And it's like we have been sounding the alarm the entire time we've had the podcast. But I feel like this tariff war has really kind of opened my eyes to some things, because when you look at the numbers, like what you just referenced, it is staggering that we have basically handed China domination on a platter. And by we, I mean Clinton, Obama, Biden, right? Because since 2000, China has basically pushed Western companies out of the field of competition. I read that it's resulted in job losses for over 3.5 million Americans. It's cost American companies between $225 billion and $600 billion a year, every year, right? And then I was reading this article in the New York Post yesterday that gave some interesting examples. One was a leading wire manufacturing company in Michigan called National Standard that I guess had been in business for 117 years. And it was shut down last year shortly after a Chinese company called Qingtai Wire and Cable. They opened a new factory in China, and there's also like a Chinese car company called BYD that's currently building a factory in China that will be over 50 square miles. That is the size of San Francisco. And it is 10 times the size of the largest Tesla factory. And like, that's crazy, right? In 2021, you were saying, what did you say? We got 10 to 13%, 13 to 15% of our imports from China. Well, in 2021, China produced nearly 1/3 of all the world's goods. And experts are predicting that this could rise to 43% of the world's goods coming from China by 2050. So really, everyone should be supporting Trump standing up to China, not just in the United States, but around the world, because we're all being affected. Europe, Japan, South Korea, Brazil, South Africa, even Russia, all rely on Chinese imports that have completely decimated markets across the globe. And the Western world needs to unite with Trump as our global partners in this long game to shift the balance of the global economy in a positive direction. And this was another thing that they were talking about on the podcast with Tucker and Alex Jones. And it kind of piggybacks on some of the stuff you said earlier about how we basically created this monster that is China. And this is all help with the globalist agenda. And he was saying like Trump is basically the world's last chance to rebuild world order. So I want to play this clip.
I think we should be honest about what it is, right? We're not going to have the United States and Russia and Iran and Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, China is all sort of acting in their own spheres. That's not the way it works.
And as you said last night, all these countries want to be on Team America.
I think that's right.
And for people that don't know this, I'm surprised. I mean, Trump understands that you do, but this needs to be everywhere. The globalists went in the 80s, 90s. They made a deal with Communist China. You get the manufacturing rare earth minerals, but you don't expand your military into the South China Sea. Well, they started 20 years ago expanding everywhere. And then it took Obama till about 14 years ago to figure that out. We had the Asia pivot, but by then it was too late. They'd infiltrated Congress. They were financing all this Destroy America wokeism and bragging about it. And then people like Bill Gates and others continue to be totally aligned with China.
No, it's right.
And the CFR saying America's over, and Larry Fink making jokes about it just 3 or 4 years ago. 5 years ago, Trump thinks he'll bring America back. He hasn't seen China. I mean, very arrogant. And now that China's even double-crossing the globalists and saying, we don't even need you, and Xi Jinping's like, we're going to pay people to have kids. We're not doing your one-child policy anymore. They're breaking with the transhumanist angle, but using the control grid, the cashless society, social credit score that the West helped them set up to now project that around the world. And so the globalists are being destroyed by their own Frankenstein monster. And then the EU's decided to ally with China. And again, the UK is, at least on the surface, acting like, no, they want to be in new Anglophile alliance with the quote U.S. empire, and again the U.S. has a limited window to get everybody on board with us, and then our alliance easily with the key countries in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, central among it, and some other alliances, and then obviously an open economic alliance with Russia, who wants an economic alliance and has more resources than any country in the world. I mean, that is the real chessboard, and that's why the left and the globalists want to drive America and Russia apart, because geographically and also militarily and then also scientifically and then just raw material. Of course, that is the obvious.
If you believe Russia's our greatest enemy, if you are working full time to divide the United States from Russia, you are acting against the interests of the United States. You hate to.
What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to think we created this not that long ago. I mean, yeah, 25 years ago, but look at how much they have grown and taken over the world. And it kind of has me thinking, we always think about like the military industrial complex and like the globalist elites, but he has a good point. Like, was it China financing all this woke nonsense to destroy America and destroy our culture? And maybe they were the ones financing a lot of these protests and things that we've seen over the last few years, because we know they've infiltrated. We know they have spies. We know that started back in the 1950s. They were sending people here to go to college and work their way up in politics and business. So yeah, it's a beast.
Yeah, and he also mentioned, how the elites were aligning with China in some respects as well. And another thing they were talking about in the podcast, I don't want to get off on a whole tangent here, but I do want to play this other clip, because they were talking about how basically the EU doesn't want to end the war in Ukraine. And, they have placed all their eggs in the basket of this whole new world order that, the Biden admin was trying to create the last 4 years. And, we've been on the brink of war with Russia, and I don't even know what's going on with Russia right now, because all we've been focused on is this whole tariff thing. But everything kind of ties into what's happening with Trump's tariff plan. And so I want to play this other clip, because he's bringing up things that we have talked about in the past with governments in Europe basically silencing their opposition, and how that all plays into this whole thing.
In the war, they're trying to drag us into it fully. They're arresting their political opposition, Călin Georgescu in Romania. They're not letting him run in the new election.
He's an amazing man. I just talked to him.
Amazing.
The day before yesterday.
And then Marine Le Pen, that is super popular in the head presidential polls. So they have a judge find her guilty of nothing and take her off the ballot. You have the State Department under Biden admittedly working in Brazil with Lula to take Bolsonaro off the ballot because he's popular, and then indict him. And they're talking about doing it in Hungary. They're talking about doing it in Poland. They said if AfD won, which they almost did, that the EU Commission might cancel that election. So the EU has really taken off the mask. And people that don't know, it was set up in 56 as a steel deal, Treaty of Rome. And then they got the nations over time to sign away their sovereignty to it. And,
I remember.
And an unelected commission with van der Leyen, up there running all of this. And she even came out, as you know, on Monday and said, well, Trump's blown up the international order. He's defeated the New World Order. And she said, okay, we're going to go ahead and agree, at least in principle, to what Trump is saying. And that's because the trade is completely one-sided. Again, Trump's move isn't just the perfect move. It's perfect in that it's the only moves we have left for us and for global stabilization. That's why anybody that cares about self-preservation for the whole planet should be fully behind Trump's policies that are very popular around the world and are seen as sane. And again, the world, this huge alliance of nations, wants to join that team. And the good news is Trump's polls are the highest ever. I know the American people are understanding that and getting that.
Okay, and so he also mentioned that Trump's polls are the highest they've ever been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look at how many people, like Germany is now officially the Conservative Party is in the lead. And it's happening. I mean, we've talked about this with so many different countries, but look at what Europe has done over the years. They've given up all of their farming in the name of climate change. They've given up all of their energy production in the name of climate change, all of their manufacturing. Like, they have pretty much decimated themselves, all in the name of climate change. And who did this? The elites, who potentially, maybe they were working with China, because just like that CNN host said, look at how much corporations have profited, like Apple. They could make a phone for like $10 there where it would be hundreds of dollars here. That's their motivation for doing it. And everyone's sick of it. And they almost did the same thing. They started doing the same thing here in America with farms and manufacturing and energy. But I feel like Europe is a few years ahead of us, and we can see like, hey, this was a really bad idea. And now even the Ivy League academics are saying, oh yeah, this whole China thing that we did 20 years ago probably wasn't a good idea. Took them 20 years to realize it, but
Yeah, well, we've just been lied to the last 4 years, like just excessively lied to. And so we finally have Trump in office, who I truly like, I really do believe he's the only one that can save this country. And I still think that they're going to do whatever they can to keep him from doing it. And we're just going to see more lawsuits and more nonsense. And, hopefully Alex Jones' predictions don't come true. But Trump is doing everything he can. And one of the things he's doing to increase our national security that relates to China is on Wednesday, we signed an agreement with Panama to secure the Panama Canal. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth held a joint press conference with the Public Security Minister of Panama. And they signed a memorandum of understanding on bilateral security measures. And Hegseth said that this move is key for countering China's influence. And he said, the era of capitulating to coercion by the communist Chinese is over. China's growing and adversarial control of strategic land and critical infrastructure in this hemisphere cannot and will not stand. So, of course, China is accusing us of bullying and saying that we're sabotaging their cooperation with Panama. But I think this was a very strategic move on Trump's part. And again, there's so many things that he's said that, remember when he first came out, we were laughing and we thought it was funny. We're like, oh, he wants the Panama Canal and he wants Greenland and he wants Canada. And it's humorous in one aspect, but it's really not, because these are all key strategic locations for protecting not only the United States, but the free world. So I think this is all important. But I do wonder how this is going to impact the TikTok deal, because Trump commented on that on Wednesday and he said it's still on the table. But he said, obviously right now, China's not really thrilled about signing it.
Yeah, no kidding. I almost forgot about the Panama Canal, but it is funny because it's like all these things came out of nowhere, but really, did they? Like if he was planning on this big, bold move, kind of knowing this would happen with China, he's probably been planning on all of this for a while and just keeping it, hush hush. But it makes me more so want him to get control of Greenland and everything else. Plus, what he said about Gaza, because the Middle East is also a threat. So it's like he's strategically, getting us set up in all of these places that are threats to make us more secure, but then it's also going to help our economy. So I just feel like we're in a really good place looking forward, but they're probably going to fight back, like Alex Jones said. So it's kind of like exciting and terrifying all at the same time. But I believe that good will prevail.
Yes.
And then you look at like the other good news coming out, not just the stock market gains, but then the White House also posted a graph showing the inflation rate dropped to 2.4% in March, which is like one of the lowest lows that it's been. And then the graph included when Biden was in office, when we had 9% inflation. And it reminded me, like, my 401k didn't really change all that much because it tanked during Biden. And so it's like, I guess that's why I didn't think the stock market crash was that big of a deal, because it was pretty shitty at certain times under Biden. So you have inflation down, you have unemployment down, you have the stock market up. America's back, or at least it's coming back. It's coming back online.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we have to keep looking at the context of we're still only 4 months into the year.
Yeah.
So 4 months into the beginning of his term. So we still have a long way to go. And I am choosing to believe that it's all good things on the horizon, despite the fear mongering and Alex Jones' predictions. But also, in terms of good news, I have some more Doge news. And Stephanie, this is fucking wild. I swear our government record keeping system does not even exist. Like, it is absolute shit. It's abysmal. Like, I'm going to tell you this, and if you haven't heard it, like, tell me how this even makes sense, okay? So this happened yesterday. It was posted on the Doge website and all over X. So it said an initial survey of unemployment insurance claims since 2020 revealed the following. 24.5 thousand people over 115 years old claimed 59 million in benefits. 28,000 people between 1 and 5 years old claimed 254 million in benefits. 9.7 thousand people with birth dates over 15 years in the future have claimed 69 million in benefits. And in one case, someone with a birth date in the year 2154 claimed $41,000. So Stephanie, this is over 24,000 dead people, 28,000 toddlers, and almost 10,000 unborn people who have received a total of 382 million in fucking unemployment benefits with our tax dollars.
You know, every week you do a Doge update, and I'm always like, it can't get any more worse than it already is. I mean, they've really uncovered a lot. Like, at some point it's going to slow down. This is probably one of the most shocking of all. This is insane.
And who's getting the money?
Who's getting the money? There has to be a paper trail. If you're giving this money to someone, where is it going? Track it. And I'm
right.
Maybe that's what they're doing. And maybe that's why Elon's afraid he's going to be assassinated. Because, okay, so this is awesome. Did you see what Elon posted on X in response to Chuck Schumer the other day?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, you're going to love this. Okay. Chuck Schumer posts on X, quote, Trump has unleashed chaos on America. His tariffs hit families with largest tax hike in more than 50 years. That's false. Doge is sabotaging Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. The market is having its worst 3 days since COVID, and congressional Republicans are going along with it so they can cut taxes for billionaires. Okay, so that's what Chuck Schumer posts, which is obviously just completely false. So Elon responds and says, quote, Chuck, I'm starting to think you're getting a piece of the action with the government fraud. But no, that couldn't possibly be the reason, could it? So I'm just like, my God, is he looking in to Chuck Schumer, like the head of the Democrat Party, basically, right up there with Pelosi? So one of my favorite congressmen, Tim Burchett, was asked about this, and he may have alluded to what Trump meant when he said something big was uncovered by Doge. So I'm going to play that clip now.
Elon's got that paper trail, and he told us in the meeting, in our little private meeting, there's a paper trail that's going back to Washington, D.C. And dadgummit, somebody better be let out of one of these buildings in handcuffs, because this is real. This is going on. We've seen it all over. We see it in California with some of the elected officials out there. It's been documented in the past, and nobody's willing to say anything about it or do anything about it. Or they get reelected, and they get put right back in leadership. And that's why it's so important to have a Justice Department that's not weaponized against the people, but is weaponized against corruption. And we've currently got that. We've just got to hold on to it.
Okay, so that's actually huge, right? Like, he's saying in a private meeting with Elon and Doge, Elon told him, we have a paper trail and it leads back to Washington. And that was how he responded to that X post.
Yeah.
I think he has something on Chuck Schumer.
I fucking hope so. And I love listening to Tim Burchett speak in his little old-timey cursing. God dang it. So I love him.
He's just like so sweet. And I feel like he's a good person. You know, you don't get that very often with politicians, but I feel like that guy actually gives a damn.
I like him. But Elon also revealed at a cabinet meeting yesterday that he's anticipating Doge will have a created savings of $150 billion for fiscal year 2026 by reducing waste and fraud. And, you know, people are criticizing the fact that, oh, he said it was going to be, you know, $1 trillion at least that we're saving. And it's like, first of all, calm down. Again, we're only 4 months into the year, but this so far adds up to $936 in savings per taxpayer, which I think is awesome. And I think it's only going to grow. So on top of that, Hegseth just ordered the termination of IT service contracts to the tune of $51 billion in the Pentagon, saying that the Pentagon employees can handle IT services themselves.
You know what? Doesn't that make you wonder? Maybe they're looking at some of the IT service people that hacked the Signal thing, and now they're saying, nope, you guys are out. We're doing this ourselves for security reasons.
Maybe.
And maybe they just don't want to like admit that publicly, but
I think there's a lot they haven't yet admitted publicly that we are going to soon find out about. But let's shift gears to Congress, because there's a shit ton of nonsense going on in Congress too. But one of the things Congress recently did yesterday, they passed Trump's, like, the blueprint of his budget plan. And so you had both the House and the Senate that are now agreeing to move forward so that they can start working on drafting the policies, the appropriations, and the spending cuts that will appear in the final package. So this is not the budget yet. This is just like the rough draft of the budget, and it's not formal legislation. But I'm hoping that this means we will eventually have a actual new budget and not just another CR. And so I guess the Senate passed this measure last week on April 5th, and then the House just gave their approval yesterday. And Trump seems pretty happy about it from everything that he's posted. And then after the House vote yesterday, Mike Johnson said, by clearing this critical hurdle, House committees can now work in tandem with Senate committees to swiftly prepare their respective parts of the reconciliation bill, keeping us on track for markups during the next work period. So I hope he's correct that it will keep them on track. But at the same time, I think now is when the real clown show begins and they start their nonsense fighting over everything.
okay, I have to say I was wrong. Like I thought, okay, they're going to pass that, continuing resolution, and then we're going to get to the end of the year and it's going to be the same bullshit. But I mean, it sounds like Congress is actually doing their job and preparing a budget. This is foreign to me. I'm speechless, but man, that's actually really good. I thought they would put it off for, till the end of the year and we'd be screwed again. So this is good news. But Congress has been very busy this week because they also had a hearing on Wednesday with a Meta whistleblower. And I didn't even know this was happening until I saw the clip. So I'm just going to play some of her opening statement because it's very intriguing.
AI arms race against China. And during my time at Meta, company executives lied about what they were doing with the Chinese Communist Party to employees, shareholders, Congress, and the American public. I sit before this committee today to set the record straight about these illegal and dangerous activities. Meta's dishonesty started with the betrayal of core American values. Mark Zuckerberg pledged himself a free speech champion. Yet I witnessed Meta work hand in glove with the Chinese Communist Party to construct and test custom-built censorship tools that silenced and censored their critics. When Beijing demanded that Facebook delete the account of a prominent Chinese dissident living on American soil, they did it, and then lied to Congress when asked about the incident in a Senate hearing. The willingness to censor was not the only troubling thing I witnessed. I watched as executives decided to provide the Chinese Communist Party with access to Meta user data, including that of Americans. Meta does not dispute these facts. They can't. I have the documents. As recently as this Monday, they claim that they do not operate their services in China. Another lie. In fact, they began offering products and services in China as early as 2014. That hasn't stopped. Their own SEC filings from last year show that China is now Meta's second biggest market. Meanwhile, Meta's AI model, Llama, has contributed significantly to Chinese advances in AI technologies like DeepSeek. Facebook's secret mission to get into China was called Project Aldrin and was restricted to need-to-know staff. There was no bridge too far. Meta built a physical pipeline connecting the United States and China. Meta executives ignored warnings that this would provide backdoor access to the Chinese Communist Party, allowing them to intercept the personal data and private messages of American citizens.
Yep.
Oh my God. If that's true, is that not treason? They're working with the Chinese Communist Party and giving them our data.
Yeah.
American citizens' private data. Like, that could be why Mark Zuckerberg's been kissing Trump's ass. We were talking about that, during the campaigning. So I don't know. What do you think? Is this going to be just another theater performance, or you think they're going to hold Meta accountable, just considering everything else going on with China?
Well, you know who's calling hard for accountability? My boyfriend, who I haven't talked about in quite a while, Senator Josh Hawley. So he's demanding that Zuckerberg testify to Congress about these alleged ties between Facebook and the CCP. And he says he needs to answer to America for how he basically sold out our country's security for China profits and then lied about it to both Congress and the American people. But I think there needs to be accountability, not just for Meta, but for everyone in the Biden admin that knew this was happening, because they did, right? Like, they knew about these Chinese cyber attacks that were targeting American infrastructure. They knew about the spying that was going on, like all of it, even COVID, like all of it is fucking connected. And these people purposely contributed to destroying our country, and they all need to be held accountable.
Yeah, and the actions of Mark Zuckerberg make me think this is absolutely true because, during the campaigning, he's like, we're not donating to politics. We're not posting politics on Meta. And then he's like talking about how, Trump is such a badass and all these things. And I'm like, that's very different from how you talked about Trump in the past. Probably because he knew this is going to come out and it's a big deal.
Well, yeah, especially because she said it's still ongoing. And even just earlier this week, they denied that China had this information, and she has the receipts apparently that they do. So I am very curious to see what comes of this hearing, and I hope somebody's fucking feet are held to the fire. So anyway, also in Congress, the House passed the SAVE Act on Thursday, and this is the act that would require proof of citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections. And if this seems like deja vu, it totally is, because we went down this road last year during the Biden admin, but the bill was stopped in its tracks by the Democrat majority in the Senate. So now that the Senate has a Republican majority, it might have a chance to become law. And a lot of people are arguing like, oh, well, it's already not legal for illegals to vote. But we know they've been voting. And the final vote in the House was 220 to 208. And what's interesting is that 4 Democrats sided with Republicans to support the bill. It was Jared Golden from Maine, Maria Gluesenkamp Perez from Washington State, Henry Cuellar from Texas, and Ed Case from Hawaii. So at least 4 Democrats have some fucking common sense. And then reportedly 4 Republicans didn't vote at all, but I couldn't find any articles saying who they were. So I'm very curious about that. But like I mentioned, yes, it's already illegal for them to vote, but we know they've been doing it. And then you take a look at states like California and Maryland and Vermont and Washington, D.C. that all allow non-citizens to vote in local elections, which I also don't understand how that's remotely legal, and it's absolutely absurd. So you know that they've been voting in federal elections there too. And then Elon basically proved that a couple weeks ago with the Medicare fraud with them voting. So this law would not only force states to require documentation of citizenship before registering to vote in federal elections, but it would also ensure that they remove non-citizens from voter rolls, and it would make it a crime to register somebody who doesn't provide proof of American citizenship. So now I guess we wait and see what happens in the Senate, but I will be surprised if this does not become law.
How can these Democrats that voted against this justify voting against it?
How do they justify anything, therefore?
It's just so blatant. But I think this is actually huge that 4 Democrats did vote for it. Because think about the last 4 years. They always stick together. Like 100% all vote exactly the same and vote against anything that could be good for Trump. So I feel like this is a good sign that the woke Democrat Party is starting to dismantle. And some people possibly have common sense. I don't know. But I think that's a good sign. It's only 4, but it's better than none. All right, gonna switch gears for a minute, not to be the bearer of bad news, but there was another helicopter crash. This happened in New York, where the helicopter crashed into the Hudson River and landed upside down in the water. There were 6 people on board, 1 pilot, 2 adults, and 3 children, and sadly, none of them survived. Another crash. Like, how many of these have we had now?
Yeah, and I read they were saying it may have been an issue with like the rotor blades, or maybe a bird flew into it or something, but they don't know yet. But yeah, this is very sad. And this was a private helicopter, right? I think it was like a tourist helicopter. Yeah, very sad. So I'm going to choose to end on a fun note since it is
Good.
Friday and all. So one of the things Trump did yesterday was he signed an executive order that will be ending Biden's water conservation members. And it's called Maintaining Acceptable Water Pressure in Shower Heads. And it applies to regulations that were put in place by both Obama and Biden. And Trump said that he's doing this to make America's showers great again. And the White House put out a fact sheet that's actually pretty hilarious. And so I want to read some of what this fact sheet says. So it says, the Oxford English Dictionary, by contrast, defines showerhead in one short sentence. President Trump is restoring sanity to at least one small part of federal regulations, returning to the straightforward meaning of showerhead from the 1992 energy law, which sets a simple 2.5 gallons per minute standard for showers. The order frees Americans from excessive regulations that turned a basic household item into a bureaucratic nightmare. No longer will showerheads be weak and worthless. Under Obama and Biden, the government issued lengthy rules, thousands of words long, redefining a showerhead as a nozzle and making multi-nozzle showers illegal if they collectively discharge over 2.5 gallons of water per minute. These changes served a radical green agenda that made life worse for everyday Americans. President Trump sought to undo this in his definition in his first term by publishing extensive analysis and a formal rule. However, Biden undid this progress and the shower wars continued. The government should not be wasting taxpayer time and money writing another elaborate definition for a term that has a simple definition. No market failure justifies this intrusion. Americans pay for their own water and should be free to choose their shower heads without federal meddling. And it's not just showers. The Biden administration aggressively targeted everyday appliances like gas stoves, water heaters, washing machines, furnaces, dishwashers, and more, waging war on the reliable tools that Americans depend on daily. These appliances worked perfectly fine before Biden's meddling piled on convoluted regulations that made these appliances worse. President Trump is slashing red tape and ending Biden's dumb war on things that work. By restoring shower freedom, President Trump is following through on his commitment to dismantle unnecessary regulations and put Americans first. President Trump said, "We're going to get rid of these restrictions. You have many places where they have water. They have so much water, they don't know what to do with it. People buy a house, they turn on the sink and water barely comes out. They take a shower, water barely comes out. It's an unnecessary restriction."
I love how in between tariffs and negotiating peace deals, he's able to make our showers great again. I really appreciate that.
Yes, and on top of that, you have to listen to this clip because he's talking about this executive order and he actually is making fun of himself washing his own hair.
And whatever you do, including dishwashers where no water comes out, but you wash your hands, and in my case, I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair. And I have to stand under the shower for 15 minutes till it gets wet. It comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous. And what you do is you end up washing your hands 5 times longer. So it's the same water. And we're going to open it up so that people can live.
Isn't he the best?
I can relate. Look at all this hair. It takes a long time under that shower faucet. So,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's so funny.
I know.
Yeah, this is great. I love it. Who knows what he's going to come up with next? He got rid of paper straws. Now he's making shower heads better. We're living in the age of Aquarius, the golden era. All right. Well, everyone, have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back here on Monday.